Okay, so today we have a file to download, census.xlsm. I'm going to download that file. Actually, I've already downloaded it, and I'll go ahead and open it up. This is census data, the way I download it from the United States Census Bureau, whatever the Census Bureau is, I don't know. This is, with one exception, this is the way the data came. It's really not very good looking data. Well, you want, hey, download some data from the census. Great, I downloaded it. What the heck is this? So I want you to take a look at the sheet and somebody tell me something interesting. Maybe interesting is too high of a bar. Just tell me something about this data. The last class, there's a bunch of numbers. Okay, something a little bit above that. What can you tell me? Something about the way the data is organized. Tell me something. Suppose your boss said to you, Smithers, make sense of this data for the annual report. All right, well, take a look at it. What is it? You don't have to tell me, some great thing. Just tell me something. Oh, okay. So you're seeing the names of these. You think these columns might have some kind of names. Let's look at column M. It's the one that says sex after all. So if I'm looking at column M, what do you think? What's that? Total females? Oh, percentage of females. Yeah, that'd be better than total females. I don't know, 50 of you, 44. Yeah, so this is, and we look at these and we can probably guess that it's some kind of percent of gender, because I'm seeing 50, everything's right around 50%. I mean, here's one that's 44.9, but 52, maybe a 53 in here once in a while. So we could probably look at that and we could say, this looks like it's some proportion of gender, but you told me percent females. How did you get that far? Oh, there's a next tab over here, data dictionary. So I'm looking here, sex 25520. Over here in the data dictionary, sex 25520. Oh, resident population, total females, percent estimate from July 1st, 2008. So it looks like this data is actually even before the last census, and we're having a new census this year. So this data is getting pretty old, but it's such a great example that I hate to give it up. So, okay, so good. So what that tells us is that we have various measures of the percentage of females in the population. And so probably the rest of these we could figure out. So this is something to do with age. It's probably the total number of people over, I don't know, what's the one right before that? 65 and over. So that's the total, not a percentage, but it's the total number of people that are 65 and older. And so each one of the columns then are responses to this variable, to this value. And so each row then probably has what? If you're going to guess, what was it? Yeah, it's the data for some kind of aggregation, level of aggregation. And now you said county, and that's because you probably looked over here and you saw county names and you went, oh, well, first here we are on Gov County. Non-coincidentally, that's the one that we have selected here. But if we go up to the top, we could come up here and we could say, listen, number 1003 is Baldwin County. And if we came over here, we would see, oh, here's a 1003. So this number here is an index to this list of county names. So yeah, so each one of these is it's a county, but then we also have some higher levels of aggregation. So number 1000 is Alabama. Number 0 is the whole United States. Does that make sense? Let's look at these numbers. Number 0 for these total ones, this one should be huge. Oh yeah, look at that. They're even using scientific notation to be able to see them. So I got to put commas in that to even see what it is. Yeah, 304 million. 304 million, yeah. Whereas if we look at just the county itself, it's 50,000 in the county. And look, poor lowly Gov County probably only has like 1,000. I don't know who this is. They got in the whole county 953 people. That's a tiny county. Okay, so now I think we got a pretty good handle on the data. Each row is about a county or aggregate up to a higher level. And then each column is, kind of the measures. And so if I look on column M, I should see this county number 1013 has 52%. So there's more women than men, 52%. What's going on over here? What is this? County 1011, county names 1011. I don't know what's going on in Bullock County, but the women are leaving because we only got 54% of the population is women. Okay, or maybe the men are coming in. I don't know, but we could probably snoop around and find out why that county, because it's pretty far away from even, we can find out why that county seems to have so many more men than women. So what would you say? Is this data easy to work with or difficult to work with? Yeah, kind of the way it is right now. I'm not sure messy is the right word, because I think the data is probably pretty clean. I mean, you can go row and column and you can see it, but it's just not organized very well for me to be able to kind of look at, and especially if I wanted to compare two counties, so this would be a nightmare. I want to compare the population of one county to another population, or population another. I gotta go look at the county, find out the row. So what I'd like to do today with VBA, I mean, our goal today is to get familiar with different ways to refer to ranges and working with ranges and different approaches. But in so doing, I would like to build this example out. I would like to build a tool that will make it really easy for us to pick a couple of counties, or 3 or 4 counties, and be able to compare them across whatever dimensions we're interested in, and have that be really useful. So that's where we're headed. So to do that, I think I'd like to start off by making a new sheet. So I'm going to insert a new sheet, and I'm going to put it maybe at the very first position. And I will call that, instead of sheet 1, I'll call it compare. And so since I'm only going to have a couple of counties, I think this might look better if I kind of transpose the data. So I'm going to bring in the data dictionary. I'm just going to copy column B. And I'm going to put it right here in column A. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and delete what's in cell A1, item description, because I'll get it. So I'll leave the rest of them right where they are. So here we have in A3 is the code, and then the population. Down here somewhere we should see the percentage of females. Here it is, total female percent estimate, the one that we looked at earlier. So now what I'd like to do is I would like to have some procedure that very nicely and easily brings in all the data for Utah County, puts it here, and then brings in all the data for Salt Lake County and puts it here, and all the data for Weber County, so I can compare those 3 counties side by side. I can look at the name of it right here, and I can look at those 3 numbers right there. Oh, that would make this so much easier. So that's what we're going to do. But to start off, we need some way for us to pick the county. Any thoughts? How are we going to pick we got to have some way for the user to choose the county. What are some options we have? Go ahead.
So it looks like the county does need that NC code. Have them, I mean, I don't want a user to have to know an NC code for county, but like, I can say like, oh, what state do you want? What county do you want?
Ultimately, we'd find it would get down to an ANSI code somewhere. So some process that we ask them the county, then we ask them the state, then ask them the county, and then it gets us to a code. Okay, that would do it. I'd like to see some other options. Go ahead.
You can probably just do a match where like the person, you could make a function in VBA where it has an input such as this county, and the person, and you could put descriptions to say make sure it's capitalized or what.
Okay, so we could, what you're saying is we could like put up a input box, and the user could type in a county name, and then we could go and find it, and we could do some kind of logic that says, we found 4 or 5 that you could be talking about. It wasn't a perfect match in any of them. Which of these do you want? That sounds like a lot of work, but it would be pretty doable. We could probably do that as well. Other thoughts? Go ahead. Maybe just a drop-down list. What are some options I have for making a drop-down list in Excel? You guys are like, supposed to be pretty good with Excel before you come to this class. I don't know, pretty good, but you know your way around a little bit. Say, I heard it. What was it? Yeah, the data validation. That's kind of built into Excel. Let's just take a look at it real quick. We're not going to do this way, but let's take a look at it. So if I come to data validation, I can say, what am I allowed to put into this cell? Any value? No. I'd like to choose from a list. Where's the list? I give it a source, and I go tell it, here's the list. And now when I go select that, I'll have a drop-down list, and it'll give me the whole list. So that's a possibility. Not going to do that one either. Other thoughts? That's a pretty good one. We'll do something very similar to it. It happens that data validation, it would give me the name of the county, and I'd much rather have like an index number that I could jump to the county a little quicker, and there's a way that will do that for us. Kind of maybe a potential other possibility is just have them go to the county names and just, find the one. Select that one, and then run it from here, and then we would know that, you want the county that you're currently on. That's kind of how we did it in the Fallen Angel example, or the assignment. But I think the one that we're going to do is a drop-down list, but instead of using the data validation, we could make that one work with a little more effort. I'm going to introduce you to ones you haven't seen yet. After all, they're on the developer tab. So I'm going to come to the developer tab, and over here in this area called controls, there's this little, I guess it's a toolbox, but it looks more like a lunchbox to me. I don't know. got a thermos in the top half and a couple of sandwiches and a banana in the bottom half. But I guess there's tools by it. That's probably a toolbox. Okay, so I'll drop this down, and that is a button. I could actually bring a button and put it right here on the worksheet and have that button run VBA code, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do the next one. This is a combo box. So combo box is like, just shows one, there's a drop-down arrow. When I click on the drop-down, it shows me the list. I can select one, and then it will tell me which one I have selected. By the way, there are two combo boxes. In fact, most of these controls are duplicated in two groups. You have form controls, which generally speaking, look a little bit nicer. They're easier to use, but not as flexible as the ActiveX controls. For example, when we use this combo box control, the only thing we can respond to, that we can make our VBA respond to, is when the user makes a choice. User makes a choice, and user makes a choice, and we can run VBA code in response to it. Now, if we want to be more complex down here, we could say, oh, when the user dropped down the list, then we could make code execute. When they chose it, then we could make code. When they moved the mouse over it, then we could make code execute. So it's more involved to configure and beyond what I want to bite off today. I'll show you how to use these later in the course. But here, we're going to use the combo box from the form control group. So I'll select that, and then I will just kind of come and click and drag to bring this on to my worksheet. So it comes on then with the little handles around that would let me resize it. If I want to, I can kind of drag it around at this point. I can't drop down the list because I'm designing it right now. If I click off of it, then I could drop down the list, but there's no list. So I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to choose Format Control. So when I right-click and choose Format Control, it's going to give me some options here. Now, the first one is called the input range. This is where it gets the list from. So with that select, I can click the little drop down here if I want to, but with that selected, I'm just going to come over here to my county names, and I'm going to choose column D. And by the way, this, I'm going to come to the very top. This is the only data that I modified here. I have built the column, or the county and the state, into a single value here just for this combo box. But other than that, this data is exactly the way it came from the Census Bureau. And I'll just do shift down arrow to select that whole range. It's like 3,000, over 3,100 counties in the nation. I had no idea there were so many counties, 3,000. Only 50 states, and there's 3,000 counties. Oh well. Now, second one then is so it's going to be a long list in that drop-down box. But the second one then is the cell link. The cell link says, how are you going to communicate back to me which one the user has chosen? And this combo box, I tell it a cell, and it will tell me the one I chose in that cell. So for my cell link, I will choose A1. There we go, A1. I might have to click on it to choose A1. Drop-down lines, 8, that's pretty meager. I got a lot more screen estate than they made this in the 1990s, so I'm going to change this to like 20 lines. What is this? 3D shading? Ooh, that's probably a little more than I'm ready for. I'm going to leave it without 3D shading. But feel free to put 3D shading on if you want. Then I'll say OK. So now I'm still designing it, so I'll click off of it, and now that thing's ready to go. I'll click the little drop-down list, and there they are. Should be able to go down and find Gov County in Kansas, or I could just go with Baldwin County because it's easier to find. It's the fourth one down. Baldwin, Alabama. And whoa, it puts a number? What's going on? Barber, Bibb. What's it doing? What number, what does that number mean? Yeah, it's the number in the list. Now, coincidentally, it's also the number of the row where the data came from. Why are those two the same? Yeah, because we started in row 1. There's no header on this data. It's just so row 1 is the first one that came to the list. But if I started the list from down here, somewhere this is where my list was from. I have no idea what this did. I better cancel. If this was where I started, then this would return 1, right? It's because it's not the row it came from, it's the order that it is in the list. Okay, great. The fact that it's the same row where the data is from will just make it that much easier to work with. Okay, so far so good. No VBA yet, but we've made it so that we could pick a county, by look it up, pick it up, and then click it, and it tells us a number. Was it a skiing accident? And this is the first I've noticed. I feel bad, but anyway, I hope you heal quickly, sir. Okay. So, so now what I'd like to do, and here's where we're going to start the VBA. When someone chooses, let's go back to Baldwin County. When someone chooses Baldwin, I would like to put right here the state, Alabama, or just AL, it's the abbreviation, and then Baldwin right there. And then I'm ready to put all the data right down below it. That's going to make this pretty easy to look at because the data now that I'm looking for is going to be right next to the label. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'll open up my Visual Basic Editor and I will insert a module. I'll make a sub-procedure, and what do I call it? I'll just call it county data. C-O-U-N-T-Y data. You always heard, you know, like when I was a kid watching Sesame Street, there was this guy called the Count. And it was relatively recently in my life that I made the connection that a count is in charge of a county, and that's where the term comes from. If you're the count, you're the guy over a county. I don't think we have counts in this country, but that was the idea. That's originally where the term count came from, was, you know, you were in charge of a county. I don't know if you were called the count, they called the county after you. They called you a count because, I don't know. Anyway, probably you were a count, and so they called your area the county. Okay, so what I would like to do is I would like to start off just by keeping track of the county number, or the row number that I'm interested in. So I'm just going to call it, let's see, I need a variable. I'm going to keep track of the row, so I'm going to call it Henry David. Get it? Henry David, the row? No, I guess not. I'll just call it the row as a long integer. Now, there's only like 3,000 lines here, and so integer would be enough, but just my rule of thumb is if it refers to a row, make it a long integer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set the value of that, and what we're trying to do is kind of see new and amazing ways to work with ranges. So here's one you haven't seen yet, or we haven't used very often. The truth is, it doesn't often bubble to my consciousness because I had used VBA for decades before I ever knew that this syntax was valid. Oh, by the way, we've got some, before we get there, I probably also want to keep track of this sheet. So the truth is, we named this sheet compare, but its real name, its code name is sheet 1. We could change this in our code right here. If I had my properties window open and I selected the sheet right here, I could come and change the name here to also say compare. C-O-M-P-A-R-E. So I could set the code name of this. And there was one year when I thought, you know, we should just do this. That's like first thing is name the sheet what you want to name it and then work with it. And I found out for about 10% of you, and I don't know why, you really can't use that code name until you close the workbook and open it up again. And then it would be okay. So we're not going to do that. Instead, it doesn't matter if you named it. I'm just going to create a, must have double clicked it. Go away. I want to make sure I'm on my general module. It says module 1 up here. I am going to go ahead and declare a worksheet variable, dim s, as a worksheet, and set s equal to this workbook. What is this workbook? What does it refer to? It's not the active workbook. It's the one containing the code that's running. Yeah, so this is the code we're getting ready to run this line right here. This workbook refers to the workbook that contains this code. Dot worksheets, and then the one called compare. Would it be better to like close the workbook, open it up again, and then just use the code name? Probably, because what's our risk here? Yeah, the user can change that worksheet name with no trouble. And as soon as the user changes the name of this worksheet, I don't like compare. I'm going to call it examine. And then this code would be dead. But if we refer to the code name, they could change the sheet name all they want and it wouldn't matter. So, but just for convenience of working here at the computer, we're going to do it this way. So, okay, so now let's go ahead and set the row. So I'm going to say the row equals worksheet S dot, and now in square brackets and no quotes, I'm just going to say range A1 dot value. When I first saw this, it like melted my brain because it is so different than anything else you see in VBA. But inside of square brackets and then no quotes necessary, that's just like a literal reference to a particular range. So whatever value got put into here when we run this, it's gonna read that in. I should now, oh, question in the back. Ah, why not say set here? So we don't have to use set down here. If we wanted to, we could put let, and then it's like the voice of God. Let row equal the value of A1, right? I kind of like it for that reason. Used to be set and let, and we got tired of typing let all the time. The truth is, we got tired of typing let long before VBA came around. I mean, it was an old construct in BASIC, and it's still around in VBA. But it does change this into a sentence that now makes it clear that this is not an assertion of equality, it is an assignment. Let this variable take on a new value, is what we're saying here. Now, why do we use set instead of let up here? And the answer is, anytime we are binding an object variable, and of course S, even though it says worksheet, it is a worksheet variable, but it's also an object variable. By saying worksheet instead of object here, it just means I'm only allowed to bind it onto worksheets. It then connects up this variable onto this object. Why do we have to say set? Why can't we just say S equals? I mean, the interpreter surely can look at this and say it's a worksheet. It's got to be binding, and I agree. We should be able to do that in this case without saying set. But there's a case where it's ambiguous. And the case is if I dim this as a variant. What's the variant data type? You know, it's whatever. I mean, I treat it like a string, it behaves like a string. I treat it like an integer, it behaves like an integer. Remember, strings have some overhead, 4 bytes of overhead that just go to tell me how long the string is. For a variant data type, there's 22 bytes of overhead for it to be able to kind of behave differently, including behave like an object if we want. Now, this probably isn't ambiguous, but what about this? What if I said now S, some variable up there, equals active sheet A1 dot value? Actually, just A1. Because I've got this variant data type, this is now ambiguous. Do I mean to bind this on as an object variable onto this object? Or remember, ranges have a default property that if I don't specify the property, it assumes you must mean the value property. Or does it mean I should use as like an integer or a string value and use the value property? So without specifying that, when I've got a variant and I've got an object that has a default property, this now is unclear. And as a result, the good folks in Redmond, Washington, when they were making the language, they said, okay, as soon as these developers do this, they're experienced. They know what's going on. You know, my mother is never going to declare a worksheet variable, right? And remember the philosophy of the language, we want to try to help you along and figure it out. And so they said, if you're really trying to bind an object variable onto an object, we're going to make you learn that you have to use the keyword set. Yeah, you have just reached kind of a higher level of VBA user in Microsoft's eyes. We're not going to help you on this one. You've got to know it. Anyway, there we go. And I'm going to take let out of here just because you don't normally see it. You almost never see it. Okay. So now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and run this debug.print the row. Now, so that should print 4. I'll just run this and there's the 4. So it's picking the 4 off of A1. But now I'd like to make this run when the user picks a value here. So I'm going to come back to my combo box. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to choose assign macro. Oh, assign macro. There's only one to choose from, county data. It makes the choice pretty easy. So now when I click off of it, that'll take it out of design mode again so I can start working with it. I'll now pick Blount County, that's number 7. I'll scroll way down here somewhere. That's county number 2,213, and so forth. And I say county number, it's actually the list entry number. There's number 1, United States of America. Oops. Okay, questions? So far, so good? Okay, so now I would like to bring in the county name, I'm sorry, the state abbreviation and the county name right here. No problem. So let's go ahead and get the county name first. So in this case, I'm going to say S dot, ooh, watch this, cells. Now, normally when we use cells, we give it 2 indices, a row and a column. Watch this, cell number 2, only 1 index. Dot value equals, and I want to get in here, something like Utah. I mean, I'm going to read the value, but that's what I'm after. But let's take a look at what happens when I use cells and only give it 1 number. So I'm going to give it 2, and I'm going to ask for the address. Sure enough, that's cell B1. What's cell number 3? Yeah, C1. What's cell number 16,380? 16,380. That's like column XEZ, row 1. And I think it's like 384. So what happens if we go to 385? Ah, it's A2. I've gotten back to column A, and I'm row 2. So it just numbers, the cells get an individual number. 16,000, go down to the next row. Another 16,000, so on, go down to the next row, all the way across. So I don't know how high you can go before it freaks out. Let's put a couple more zeros in there. CV101. BFM 100,007. Oh, why is that even useful? The reason it's useful is sometimes instead of operating on the sheet, you're operating on some other range. So let's say I had the range A1 through A50. Now this range is just 1 column. And so now I don't know what that would do. That's crazy. But now, like the 3rd cell, oops. Now the 3rd cell range, dot. So that's A3. And the 5th cell, and so forth. Or maybe this is all on 1 row. So this is through Z1, no, A through Z1. And so now, so the point is, cells becomes really handy to use a single address for or maybe I've got 2 rows. To B100. No, Z100. No, Z2. There we go, 2 rows, 26 columns. So anyway, but it gives me 1 index that I can use to kind of go across that whole set with only having to think about 1 index and saying, oh, when do I have to change to different row and different column? Okay. So instead of just looking at row here, I'm going to go to my counties sheet. So I've got a sheet named counties. The code name is counties. Since that was made before you opened the workbook, it's all going to work for you just fine. So I'll just go by that name. Counties dot cells. In this case, kind of similar to what we've done before, row number, the row. And I'm trying to get the state name or the state abbreviation. I think that's in the 3rd column. Yeah, so that's column C. So that'll just be row number 3, or we could put a C in there. Dot value. And then for cells, we better go row 2, column 2. The value here is going to be, and we'll put a B here. So now when I run this, it should bring in the right state and county. Come down here to Covington, Alabama. Come down here way lower. And there's Pontotoc, Oklahoma. Questions? Okay, so our next chore is a bit more of a chore. We now need to lay in the data for here. If you were doing this by hand in Excel, how would you do it? Copy and paste transpose. So over here in the data set, I would just find, I'm talking about Baldwin County. Here it is, 1003. I just come here, Control Shift right arrow, do a copy, come here and do a paste transpose. In fact, I might actually just do that and record myself doing it. I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape, and I'll record. Where's my little record button? Right down here, record button. The truth is, you can record this along with me if you want, but the code that it produces will be so simple, you might just want to type it when we're done, but feel free to record it with me. So I'm making a new macro. It's called macro 1. That's a fantastic name for it. Now, typically in the past when we record a macro, our goal has been, let's record this process and then make kind of as few changes as necessary to make this really work for us. Here, we are only recording this to see what's the syntax for this one little thing. We're only trying to do enough to be able to see what that particular statement was, and then we'll integrate it into the code that we're writing by hand. So I'm going to come here and Control Shift right arrow, copy, Control C. I'm going to come here to my compare sheet. I'm going to select B3, and I am going to right-click, paste, transpose. And apparently, I didn't get all the data. So interesting. Anyway, I think that will be enough to get us to where we're headed. So let's stop recording. Why did I not get the data? Oh, because I was over here. I wasn't at the first. I was way over here. That's okay. I just wanted to see how to transpose anyway. All right, so that's one of the things that's a little bit strange is that every time you start up your workbook again, when you record a macro, it goes, oh, we better make a new module for this session's macro recordings. So it's over here in module 2. Let's just take a look at what it did. So it's doing something here, and we're familiar with this syntax a little bit, a range where I give it 2 other cells with whatever cell is selected, and then from that selection and XL to right. So starting where I was, push all the way off to the right, and then we're selecting that, and we're going to copy it, selecting compare, selecting somewhere else, and we're doing a paste. Actually, we're doing a paste special. There's all these kind of things you can do with paste special. This is the one we're after, transpose. There's this one. I was so surprised when I first found out what this one does. I mean, paste special I didn't use often. Did anyone know what the operation does? You might have seen it. For me, every time, like if there's data already existing there and you paste some stuff over it, it's going to replace it. Not if you've set the operation to add. It'll say, I've got all these values here. You're pasting on top of other values. Add them together. And it'll add the numbers. And instead of replacing it, it'll say, oh, there's a 5 there. I'm putting a 4 on top of this. Make that 9. Oh, here's a 3, and that's a 7. Make that one 10. I don't know why you'd ever do that. But apparently, it was desirable enough that they built that into it. You want to multiply them together? Great, we can multiply them. It's a different operation. We just want to paste transpose. So most of these are not necessary. In fact, I can like delete all these out except transpose. Paste special, transpose equals true. That's the thing. So once I've identified the one that I want to copy, I can copy it, and then it looks like I can actually go to just a particular cell, and I can do paste transpose. So I'm going to just copy this because that's the part I was after. Maybe I'll just paste it up here in my immediate window so I can see it when I come back to module 1. Okay, so now in module 1, I've got to get after that cell, that range that I'm trying to copy. Now, the way that they did, let's go ahead and do it. Maybe I'll go ahead and set up a range object, dim RNG as a range. And I can do this without setting it to a range, but just, again, kind of experience with working with ranges. Set RNG equal to, now I'll talk about the range that I'm interested in. So two-dimensional, or a multi-cell range that I identify by giving a starting and ending cell. So range, I'll have an open and closing parentheses, and I'll put some argument, a comma, and some other argument in there. The first one is where I want the data to start. Now let's figure this out. I'm going to come back over here to my compare. Let's see what I've got going on here. So when I choose, let's see, let me delete this for now. When I choose Bibb, or when I choose Baldwin, Alabama, anybody from Alabama? Here? No? Oh, good, you're close. I'm actually looking for someone whose last name is spelled like this one, A-U-T-A-U-G-A, because I'd like to know how to pronounce that one. Ataugua? I bet no one in the South actually calls it Ataugua. It just was way too many syllables. They've adjusted it somehow. Anyway, so here's Baldwin County. So if I look on the list, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I should expect to see, whoops, I got an error here. Let me set that into a comment so this code will run. I should expect to see a 4. If I choose the next one, I should see a 5. Okay, so I've got, for Baldwin County, I've got a 4. Now I'm gonna come look at my data set. Wait, I'm gonna look at my data dictionary, and Baldwin, I'm sorry, my county names, and my Baldwin is county number 1003. So I'm gonna come back to my data set, and I'm gonna look for 1003. Okay, so this is the Baldwin data, but it's not row 4. It's row 5. It's close. Could be just a coincidence that it's so close. Let me get a little more, let me just kind of snoop around a little bit more. Let me come back to compare, and let me choose bib, 2 down. That gives me 6. Where's bib? Bib is 1007. Go to my data set. 1007 is, 2 down. It's on row 7. This looks to me like these are in the same order as they are on my county name sheet, and yet somehow they're not quite right. What's wrong? There's no header. Yeah, there's no header on my county names. It starts on row 1, and my data has a header, so it's offset by 1. So our starting cell, when we're going after Baldwin County, is right here, row 5, but I have a 4 to work with. No problem. So the range that I'm interested in to start with is going to be looking at my data sheet. That's the name of the data sheet. You can see it right here, data. Dot cells, row number, the row plus 1, column number 1. The data I'm interested in starts right in column number 1. That's where I want my multi-cell range to begin. Now, there's a couple of approaches I can get to find the ending cell. One, I could just hard code it. And the truth is that wouldn't be so bad because this stuff always ends in column 83, which is column number CE. Escape and right arrow. So CE is column number 83. And so we could just hard code the ending of that. But what do I dislike about that? Yeah, I mean, we're doing another census right now. I mean, I could have new census data, the rate the federal government works, I could have new census data in as little as 3 years that this data could be available to me. And when I drop that data in here, I'd like my code to still work. And what do I think? You think there's going to be 83 columns of data, 83 things they aggregate this year? There's no way it's going to be 83. It's possible, but they change the census every time. And so to come up with exactly the same number would be really unusual. Could be less, but there's usually more. They usually kind of add stuff on. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that should be a plus. The underscore is a placeholder for you to ask what belongs there. It's a plus. In my defense, the underscore and the plus character are right next to each other on the keyboard. But yeah, we're just adding one onto it.
So like, isn't that sort of also a form of including? You don't know that the row reference will always be, the right one will always be one below.
Yeah. So the question is here, hey, you're really making an assumption here. You are assuming that what we have, that the order in which this data is presented, is the same order that the county names are listed in. That is an assumption I'm making. And it's possible that when the data comes back the next time, it won't be that way. That instead of ordered this way, they're ordered, I can't imagine them coming up with a different ordering, but they could come up with a different one. Maybe instead of ordering them alphabetically by state and then by county, they order them by county first. And then, so Baldwin, Alabama is right next to Bowdoin, Wyoming or something. So they're just that way. So that's possible. So you're right, that's an assumption I'm making. To be safer, we could, because we would know that the code has to be here, so we could do some kind of a lookup and find it. We probably have time in today's example. I mean, last class got out like almost 5 minutes early. So we could spend the 5 minutes on that, or we could press forward and get out 5 minutes early too. I'm wearing the robe. I get to decide. Question here, and then we'll come here. So where did these come from? You didn't declare them. I haven't seen them. And the answer is, these are the code names for these worksheets. Let me zoom in. So data right here is the code name built onto this one. And I even code named my compare sheet. I actually typed that in here. But as I mentioned, for some of you, if you don't close the workbook and open it again, that code name's not available. And I don't know why it is. Most of you, it would be available. So that's why we built a variable here, is just so I didn't have to have all of you close your workbooks and open them up again. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just assume that the data is in the same order here as it is in the way that the counties are listed. Perhaps a bad assumption. Now I am going to, I got to figure out how to tell when to end. Now, if you were doing this, you would probably come here to the data set and you would go, great. Here I am on the beginning of my data, 1003. I'm going to hit Control, Shift, right arrow, and that is the data that I want. And in fact, that's what we recorded to get there, and I recorded us doing that. What is the danger with this? If I get my data again, and I have more columns now, I'm gonna go out there. Unless, what? Unless there's a blank cell. You know, and I watched the White House this year ignore subpoenas from Congress. And I don't know, but what they're gonna like ignore some of these questions and go, you know what? We're not reporting what the percentage of female population is in Wyoming this year. We're just not gonna give it to you. So, I mean, I don't see any blanks now, but I don't know what's coming up. So I'm nervous about that. And, you know, even though if I zoom out on this data, you know, I'm looking at that and that looks fully specified, even especially now. Anyway, okay. Let's go back to 100%. Something. Okay. So, so what would be safer is for me to go way out here to column XFD, and then Control left arrow to come back to the data. Now, instead of saying I am requiring there to be no breaks in the data, what am I saying? Yeah, I'm requiring, go to the end, I'm requiring there to be no other data until I bump into the data I'm interested in. I think that's probably a little bit safer. Go ahead.
Could you just do like replace all blanks with like NA or something like that?
Oh, so could I do something to replace all blanks with NA? Yeah, I could do that, and that would make the Control right arrow go over there. But I'm kind of hesitant to be changing the data. In some cases, that wouldn't be the, and one of the reasons is I might like to, you know, at some point, see, I guess if I put an NA in there and I did some kind of numeric analysis on this, it would probably skip the NAs anyway. So yeah, I could probably do that, but the truth is, often I may really want them just to be blank. So I could put NA and then change the font color to white so they don't show up or something. But this approach will be almost as easy as Control right arrow, and it'll be safer for that idea of saying, you know what, I've got some blank cells in here, but I want to get them all. Go ahead. Is there a way to control against blank cells being in the first right column? And the answer is, I don't need to control against blank cells because that's what I'm counting on. But what you're actually saying is, what if some weirdo comes out here and says, hi. Then I come out here and I hit Control left arrow and now I'm stuck there. Yeah, what I'm saying is that's less likely. You know.
But I mean, like if there was a missing value in the last column, or are you going to go on the top row?
Oh, because here's the, that's not going to be, that won't be a concern for us. I'll show you why. But yeah, when I first thought of this approach, I thought, oh, wait a minute, what if there's missing data in the last one? And where data is supposed to be, but it will be a non-issue. Let's go ahead and get there. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll kind of test this out. So here I can actually ask cells.count. Not cells.count, sorry, that's way too big. That's how many cells are there on a worksheet? It's like 17, 18. 16,000 million. 16 billion? No, it's more than that. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a bigger number than Excel can deal with. But the number of columns is C-O-L-U-M-N-S. Number of columns is easier to get to. Now, I did not tell it which sheet I was talking about. What did it assume? Assume the active sheet. I'm okay with this unless I've got a chart sheet in my workbook and someone's on the chart when this happens, because there's no columns on a chart sheet. But we're going to accept that risk for now. So now I could say, no. I want the cell, maybe active sheet. Let's see, dot cells, row number 1, column number 16,384. Right? And I'll ask for the address of this. XFD1, great. Now I'm going to say from here, do dot end XL to left. And that gives me CE1. So that goes all the way up to the very last one, comes back until I hit data, and then we've got it. Okay, so now I'm going to bring this. I don't need the address. I don't need the active sheet, because the sheet I'm looking for is data dot cells, not the first row, but the row plus 1. So I'm talking about whatever row I want the data from, go all the way out to the end of the worksheet, end to left, come back until I bump into some data. And that is then my last cell. So now I have set my range equal to that. And it's a little bit too big to fit, so I am going to use the underscore to break this onto 2 lines. In a lot of languages, you have a character that tells you what the end of your statement is, like a semicolon. But a semicolon at the end of your statement, and you can put that statement across multiple lines until the semicolon goes up. It's still assumes the same statement. In VBA, we assume you have 1 statement per line. And we also assume 1 line per statement. And so if you want to put a statement into 2 lines, you have to put at the end, you have to put a underscore. But it has to be a space before it. So I guess it's really kind of 2 characters, space and then an underscore. And then it says, oh, you're done with the line, but the statement continues on the next line. So sometimes the lines get wide. And the recorder actually does this quite often, so you've probably seen it. The recorder did it earlier, but I think I deleted it. Yeah, I undo here. The recorder recorded this so that it was a little bit, didn't go so long. Okay, back to module 1. No, module 2. Oh, I didn't undo it there. Anyway. Okay, I think we're okay. So now that I've got that range set, I should be able to say rng.copy, and then my compare sheet, which I've called S, dot, where do I want to put this? I want to put this starting in B3. So let's see, is there kind of another way to put, I guess I might as well throw the offset in here. S dot, now offset's really construed to get here. Let's just go ahead and go directly to it. Range B3 dot paste. Now I put it up here. Oh, I deleted it. That's terrible. Paste special. And then I'm going to say XL transpose. XL paste. Is transpose here? Yeah, I'm kind of curious that it didn't actually show up as an option there. Space transpose equals true. So now that should paste that data starting in B3 and then pasting it down. I think that's going to do it. Can I write that much code without having any error at all? Probably not. Come here to compare. I'm going to choose bib. Oh, look at that. Put it in there. Let's go back to Baldwin, which should be 1003. There's Baldwin data. It's all laid right in there. Oh, I'm feeling so good. Let's go back to the code. Yeah. Why does it run my code when I choose this? It's a little magic thing. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to choose assign macro. And then I'm going to pick county data. So when I right click the combo box and choose assign macro and tell it to run that macro, when I make a different choice in that combo box, it will run that macro. And it does it after the choice is made. So I have access to the new value. Okay. Well, it's taken us almost an hour to get the first one. And I want to be able to get 2 or 3 or 4 or 12 lined up here so I can compare them. After all, the name of the sheet is compare. So someone talk to me in English. What do I got to do? Give me an algorithm. Oh, don't say that so fast. Normally we think about, okay, right now all of our data is going into column B. So we've got like 3 different places where we're in different ways we're saying column B, column B, column B. So we've got to do something to figure out, no, now it's got to be column C, and the next time it's got to be column D. But what you're suggesting is, it's already written for column C, why don't we just insert? And then we're ready to go into column B. Column B is kind of wide. We can fix that too. So yeah, watch this. I'm going to do it after I set the worksheet. Maybe yeah, even before I set the row. Doesn't really matter. As long as it's after I set the worksheet, I'll say s.columns, column number 2, dot insert. And if you didn't know it was insert, you could record yourself doing it. You would see, oh, it's dot insert. That's it. Well, we got to fix the wide problem, but now I got 2 counties going in there. They're kind of hard to see. Well, fortunately, I could record myself doing a double click there. And by the way, what's that action called in Excel? Yeah, it's autofit. After I put the data in here, I'm just going to say, I'll do that same thing. Actually, I'll show you a different way to refer to a cell. Given a cell to get to the whole column. S.range B100. That's a particular cell in column B. But from that cell, I can go, oh, I want the entire column. So given a cell, I can expand that out to the whole column. And from there, I can say dot auto fit. And so now I should be able to delete all of these. Add a county, add another county, add another county. And I could put 12 on this screen. I could even zoom in and still see these guys. Oh, that's unfortunate. It goes so wide that it pushes me off the screen and it leaves me off the screen. I better select A3 when I'm done. So we'll come back, S.A3.select. And that should take care of that problem. The very last thing, I'm selecting A3. Well, I'm pretty happy with that, except for the fact that it wiggles so much. I'd rather just kind of see it pop in there. So, one more thing to do. I think we talked about the fastest kind of computer you can buy is made for doing what? Yeah, gaming, refresh rate. I was talking about this in the last class. I said, yeah, then they'll do like 60 frames a second, and they're all, that's weak. Real gaming computers do how much? Yeah, 144 refreshes in a second. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Anyway, the whole point is it's expensive to update the screen. So you may really want to reduce the number of screen updates you have, and in this case, it's not the time that I'm interested in, it's just that kind of screen flashing. I don't think it's necessary. And so, but I can do but the same approach solves both things. And that is up here at the top of, what did I just do? I don't know. Up here at the top of my code, I'm going to say application for the whole Excel. I'm setting up property the whole Excel. Application dot screen updating equals false. Now what this says is, all right, Mr. Interpreter, I'm about to do some things that's going to make you want to change what's on the screen. Don't do it. Just don't update the screen until I tell you I want you to update the screen. I'm turning off the screen updating. So if I had code that went in there and changed the value of A1, it won't show that change until later in life. And by later in life, I mean millisecond or two later, we're going to turn the screen updating on. Truth is, we could leave it off, and it would just, you know, it only affects changes that happen through code anyway. So now that I put, I'm updating false down here, screen updating equals true. You know, but imagine if this was in a loop, you know, I'd kind of want to turn it off and turn it on. So each iteration of the loop, I could see it bring in the first one, not wiggle the screen, and then just poof, bring in the second one. So I can control when it updates and when it doesn't update. This one's just one. But now that should be a lot smoother. See how that works? F-A-S-E, F-A-L-S-E. So I got true spelled right. And I'm in break mode, so let me hit stop here. And now no wiggle. It just brings in the data. Why we're comparing Georgia to Hawaii and Idaho, I don't know. But now we can, negative 30. Well, this must be like a net change. Yeah, the resident population changed. People are leaving Hawaii and they're moving to Georgia. I don't know. Is that's a net change. That's not a percent. 30 people left this county. That's awesome. I don't know why that's so funny. 30 people left Kalawao County. Oh, you guys must be smarter because we finished 5 minutes ahead of when the last class finished. Well, I didn't have to talk about screen updating because we already talked about it in this class. Question?
What if your screen, so my screen didn't refresh before we did the screen update because false flashed?
Oh, yours wasn't flashing to start with. How interesting. I don't know. I don't know why yours wouldn't have done it when mine did. But I'll tell you this little story. So, you know, your code will run faster if you turn it off. But did I tell you about the guy from Federal Express, the guy who did his internship at Federal Express? I probably shouldn't put this on recording, so pretend I didn't say that. But so he's doing his internship at a large international shipping company. And he automates something, you know, and he has screen updating turned off. But he said, you know, I just kind of I like to watch it do what it was doing. You know, screens are flashing, pop, pop, pow, pow, lines are changing. And he said he just liked to watch it. So he had it screens updating, but he had it turned off. And, you know, he's running his macro, pow, pow, bing, you know, oh, wow, it's going so great. And his boss walks by. And the screen is going crazy. What is going on in here? You know, and, oh, you know, I just wrote a VBA sub-procedure to automate this task to, you know, whatever. He goes, you wrote that? Yeah. Boss never would have known he even was doing it, except, you know, he saw the screen, you know, pop, pop, pop. Anyway, the boss, you know, what's going on here? Show me what you're doing here. And he's just like really impressed, you know, because whatever was, you know, taking him a long time to do, he's doing fast now. Anyway, he goes to his boss and his boss. By the end of his internship, he is making a presentation to the vice president level. I don't know what vice president of what, you know, showing what he had done. And I don't know what they ever did with it. Or if he ended up, I'm sure he got a full-time offer. Did he go there? I don't know. But so there might be other reasons why having the screen go crazy, you know, could end up in a result, but it's not going to perform better. All right, any other questions? Wouldn't it be great if like the next thing was like, oh, you know what? You're right here, click another button and actually build the chart that gives me a bar chart that compares, you know, that shows, you know, these labels under it, puts this as the title of the chart and just shows that. And I click it again and it, boom, pops another chart. Exactly the same size, exactly formatted the same, right below it. Another chart pops it in. We don't have time to do that in the next 7 minutes. But when we get to charts, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to pick up this example, and we'll build charts automatically, push of a button. OK, that's it for today. Class dismissed. You know, I really should have like a sign that says applause, you know, so the folks on YouTube would hear you guys clapping for me. Like, this guy's incredible. They're clapping and everything. Clap now. Uh-oh, I think I just recorded that.